I've been at Berklee for 11 months now. I came on August 17th, 2021 as the inaugural dean of a brand new division, which is Division of Africana Studies. And so the way that Berklee, both on the college side, College of Music, and the Boston Conservatory at Berklee, we are the only division that sits on both sides of the house. And we have an academic department, the Africana Studies Department, as well as the Africana Studies Center. So when I came on board, one of the first things that I saw was an opportunity to take all of the various assets that we have been doing. We in our piano department, we have gospel piano and gospel organ courses. Our ensembles department, we have the Reverend's Gospel Choir. We have a number of gospel ensembles. In our songwriting department, we teach folks to write, gospel songs. But there is no space at Berklee where a student can come and focus on gospel music, focus on the gospel music industry, or focus on the impact and the influence that gospel music and the industry have had on culture, whether American culture, global culture. So one of the first areas that we've been building out at Berklee in this new division of Africana Studies is a concentration called Gospel Music Arts, Industry and Culture. And so part of that, I said, well, Berklee has a phenomenal platform. Why don't we bring in some folks who understand and who have been part of this industry for many, many years? And so Dr. Teresa Harrison has had a great relationship with Berklee. And so one of the first phone calls that I made was to her and invited her to be our scholar in residence, to help us to not only envision what it would look like to build this area at Berklee, but also to help develop curriculum and to help use the platform of Berklee globally to have a major impact and influence, and not just the performance practice of creating music, but also input and access to the industry. And so together with her, we decided to bring in an artist in residence who is Kurt Carr, who's of course been in the industry for many, many years. And together they will anchor our summer gospel performance program, which is in many ways an opportunity for us to give back to young people. The program is for essentially ages 15 to 18, 19, really high school students, to give them an opportunity to work with two living legends, to hone their craft in terms of performance practice, whether they're musicians, whether they're vocalists, whether they're songwriters, whether they're liturgical dancers, whether they do liturgical mime. We have all of that access within our faculty here at Berklee, but also to help them to understand the importance of industry and how do you develop yourself as an artist? How do you develop yourself in terms of doing ministry?
Thing. A lot of times, even people do feel like gospel music has so much talented singers and musicians, but a lot of times it's kind of not. It's pushed kind of to the to the back or whatever, not given the real exposure that some of the other genres have. And do you feel like something like this could really help people realize that you can be successful in gospel music, and there is platforms for you to really even have that exposure? Or do you even find that sometimes people, like, they may not want to be involved in gospel music because they feel it's not that many opportunities?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great question because it talks about the tension. First of all, you don't have anybody like Elvis Presley without gospel music, and I'm talking about Black gospel music. Most of the pop singers, and even some of the rappers, grew up in church, and church was the first place that they were able to perform, where they first held the microphone, where they were first had the applause of a congregation who backed them and encouraged them. And so, yes, I think we are elevating gospel music to the place where it needs to be as a superior art form and one of the major contributions to American culture, but also global culture. Gospel music is, and gospel music has also been pushed aside in order for R&B or jazz or pop, because those are seen as more economically viable. There's more money to be made in there. And what we're saying is no, gospel music is equally influential, if not more influential, because gospel music is all about the message. It's about the good news. Whether you go from Thomas Dorsey and that gospel blues that he was doing back in the day, to you do some, Lecrae and some of the gospel hip hop, we're saying that there's room and space for this. The industry has already proven that there's space for this. When you think about Kirk Franklin, and Yolanda Adams and Donald Lawrence and different folks, or if you think about contemporarily what Maverick City are doing, I mean, they're on tour now selling out auditoriums or whatnot. So I don't think that gospel music has to prove itself. I think it just needs to have adequate and equal access to platforms so that it can show forth what it can do.
Definitely. And so can you just talk about like your kind of upbringing with gospel music, or even some of your influences and kind of which led you kind of to this journey now?
Sure. So I'm originally from Los Angeles. And so I grew up in the Baptist church, Trinity Baptist Church, there in Los Angeles, 2040 West Jefferson Boulevard, right down the street from oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the name of the church. It'll come to me in a second. Bishop Charles Blake is the pastor. West Angeles Church of God in Christ there, where Kurt was on the music. Kurt Carr was on the music staff years ago when I was still in Los Angeles. Dr. Judy McAllister was the minister of music during that time. And I would tell the story of how me and a number of our young people would leave our Baptist church when the service was over and sneak into the back of West Angeles Church of God in Christ to hear what Judy McAllister and the choir there. After Judy left, Jason White was the choir director there, and Jason White, of course, is known for building out the Kanye West church services. Jason's the one who does the choir there, and so I grew up in that rich tradition. I'm a musician, pianist, organist, vocalist, choir director is how my training came. And then I went up to the Bay Area to do undergrad. And so I was at UC Berkeley, kind of the time when the Hawkins, Edwin and the family were building their worship and arts seminars. So, partook in some of that as a participant, but certainly around that area. And then I moved to Pittsburgh. Did graduate work at the University of Pittsburgh, and was a church musician all along that time, playing in churches. I probably counted, by the time I was done with graduate school with my PhD, I had played in about 30 different denominations over time, and really learned the different worship styles, the different approaches to music ministry. And so, I did that, and then I started teaching at the collegiate level. And then accepted my call to ministry, became a pastor, and then also led a number of programs across the nation. So as part of the Hampton Ministers Conference for the last decade plus, probably the last 11, 12 years, if you count the 2 COVID years, I've been the director of the James Abington Church Music Academy for the Hampton Ministers Conference, where we take undergraduate and graduate students who are studying music, who are also leaders in their local church music ministries. And so I mentor them and lead them in kind of a micro conference as part of that conference. And we've done stuff at the Calvin Institute for Christian Worship. We've done stuff at different institutions across the nation. I've taught at many of the institutions across the nation as a guest clinician and as a visiting professor. And so I'm just honored to bring that experience, first as a musician, but then second as a scholar of the music, to come to Berklee and to expand this platform and to really grow what those who were there at Berklee before me had envisioned. I call this legacy work. This was not the dream child of mine. It was the utterances that I had heard from other people, and I just was able to bring all the energy together and really build it together under my leadership during the season.
Yes, great. And so with the gospel performance program, you also touched upon like business techniques and professional engagement, like doing things like that. Whereas a lot of sometimes when people have these aspirations to be singers, they don't really focus on the business side. I really don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And we just talk about the importance of that and how it is key in an artist's career to really expect even well, whether it's gospel or even secular to know like the business side of it.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it on the head. I mean, we have so many young people who are just talented, phenomenally gifted, and yet don't understand the marketing piece, and don't understand the licensing piece, and don't understand the copyright piece, and don't understand, how to leverage their art in maximum and to maximize it in multiple mediums. So as you were introducing Encore, you talked about podcasts, you talked about various platforms. Well, many of our young people, they know singing or they know how to play the instrument, and that's what they know, but they don't really understand the notion of networking. They don't understand the notion of either what we call artist development in terms of how to present themselves and how to figure out what their style is. I mean, many of our young people, they show up to school, and as we used to say back in the day, they can sing flat footed, no stunts, nothing. They can do that. But when the song is over, the question is, now what do you do? How do you invite people to participate in what you're doing and get engaged with what you're doing? How do you learn how to write about yourself through a blog, or how to present yourself on a podcast, or how to show up and do a special feature in terms of an interview? And we want to prepare our young people to understand not only the in front of the camera microphone stuff, but what happens behind the scenes in terms of production, in terms of engineering, in terms of arranging, in terms of how to take your song and perhaps present it for movies or soundtracks or video games. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities here that you can take your talent and expose yourself to, but you have to know how to do it. And so that's one of the goals that we're taking at Berklee, to be as entrepreneurial in how we develop our artists, but also how do you package a piece, right? How do you create a sizzle or a trailer, around what you're going to be presenting? And so all of that is equally important to the performance practice, and all those things we're going to get involved in.
Okay, and can you tell us about like some of are there any other initiatives like in the works for the African Studies Division?
Oh yeah, we're excited. Gospel music, arts, industry, and culture is our first major concentration. The reason I'm calling it concentration is in fall of 2024, we're going to launch our first degree, which is going to be a Bachelor of Arts in Black Music and Culture. And so a student can come to Berklee and within the Africana Studies division, study Black music and culture globally. So what I'm saying there is that we're going to have a number of concentrations where you can specialize. And when we talk about gospel music, arts, industry, and culture, we're not just talking about the United States of America. We're talking about gospel in the Caribbean. We're talking about gospel in the Afro-Latinidad cultures. We're talking about gospel on the continent of Africa. And what are the differences? What are the similarities? What are the continuities? And then from gospel music, industry, and culture, we're going to build a concentration in hip hop culture and technology. Again, we have so many faculty doing some great things around hip hop, but there's no centralized place for students to come and study not only the performance practice of it, but the cultural piece of it and what the impact that hip hop has had around the world. And then when we move from hip hop culture and technology, the next concentration is going to be in Afrofuturism, which goes across genres, which goes across the diaspora in the way that we think boldly, courageously about the African contribution to the world via our imagination and what we're calling to existence. So those are three of the things that we're working on now that we're really excited about.
Yeah, it definitely sounds like a lot of great things, a lot of amazing things to look forward to. So a question I have for you, could just tell us what, we talk a lot about music and kind of some of your upbringing, like, so what's in your playlist? What are you like, what got your attention? What are you listening to now?
Listen, I am, and I'll go backwards first and then I'll go forward. I'm a huge John Coltrane person. I'm John Coltrane, Stevie Wonder. Um, and then I would have to take you to Patti LaBelle. And I guess I'm aging myself by these selections. And then I would suggest, I'm a Shaka Khan, fan. She was just here in Boston for the 4th of July, put on a phenomenal show. Just absolutely amazing. Um, but I think that um, what Kendrick Lamar is doing has just been really fascinating to me. And some of our young hip hoppers, of course, I'm a Tupac fan, but with some of our young hip hoppers, what they're saying, and more on the conscious side, is what I'm listening to. And then I think, I'm trying to stay away from just giving you a list of all Berklee alumni who are doing great stuff. Layla Hathaway and Major out here is doing his things, but God's got the whole world in his hands. There's so many, Dreon is doing some great stuff, and all of our Berklee alum who we love dearly. But there are a lot of young artists who have a lot to say in this really challenging world that we live in. It is so divided and divisive. And I love the messaging that comes across the various genres that also fuse and feed on each other. And so I'm really a message oriented person, to go back to Marvin Gaye and what's going on and those kind of things, which is why I'm a huge Stevie Wonder, because there's so much messaging that we need to hear that can help us to be inspired, empowered, and uplifted in ways that I think gospel clearly does it, but it goes across the sounds and the sentiment of Black music. So even going back to, Mama Miriam Makeba, on the African continent and through the Caribbean with some of our toasters and some of our, Calypsonians. I think that the sounds of Blackness are pertinent and extremely important because we're a people who, no matter what has been done to us, we've never lost hope. And I think that that's a powerful testimony for those of us who come from the African diaspora.